2022 has ended for good. We'll never see that year again until the heat death of the universe, which will cause a new Big Bang and usher in a whole new cycle. One where you'll make the same choices, completely unaware that you're a puppet on strings. Everything you do or ever will do, you're gonna do over and over again. Forever. We will always be in that room, watching the Linkara movie. We will always be there, watching a 30-year-old fat man who rants about comic books on the internet fight a Terminator skeleton he bought at a Halloween store for like $20. The CGI green screens, the bad attempts at dramatic monologues, the cheap pot shots at other creators that are exactly as incompetent as Linkara, nothing will change, and we will stay in our hideous dream until it all goes black, just for our eyes to open up, and the movie is back at the start, playing all over again. Okay, all seriousness, the Atop the Fourth Wall movie sucks donkey dick.
Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn.
Freak. Fraudulent motherfucker.
You guys have never stared into the face of an angry god as it laughs at how small you are, and then you stare right back at it and make it blink!
Do something! Come on! Prove it! Fuck faith! Earn it! Show me something real! I need it now! Not later! No! Show me and I'll believe in you till the day I die! I swear, I'm calling on you! I'm calling on you!
So yeah, we're doing the Atop the Fourth Wall movie. I felt that if we're giving Duke Ember a proper send-off, let's cash out with the worst of the Channel Awesome movies, by fucking far. Because yes, the Linkara movie is exactly that. The worst of the Channel Awesome cinematic universe. For multiple reasons. Not just because of the low budget or the bad special effects, because the other movies were guilty of pretty much the exact same shit. No, what makes the Atop the Fourth Wall movie so agonizing is actually something that drove me up a fucking wall. The sheer, unprecedented fucking ego. But before we get into the movie itself, it's time to lay out some context. I briefly mentioned Linkara in the other Channel Awesome videos, specifically that he reviews comic books and made a hilariously bad webcomic, and his history on various porn sites and roleplay forums that got revealed, showing that this man's brain would find a goddamn M&M sexually attractive in the right circumstances.
Things Linkara jerked off to: corpses, feet, incest, Muppets, gay gangbangs, strap-on beta shit, dick girls, tons of rape. The green M&M.
Man, this one is a sick fucking puppy. Only a complete retard would out their fetish on the internet so publicly like that. You guys ever read Gigant? Now this is all pretty basic bitch stuff. Tons of people have embarrassing stuff they'd rather hide, and let's be honest here, Linkara isn't the first person to have a porn history that would make 100 Days of Sodom look like My Little Pony. But to understand why this is all so funny in this exact circumstance, let's talk about Linkara as a person for a bit. So, Linkara's story is actually pretty common in regards to Channel Awesome and that guy with the glasses. He was a big fan of Doug Walker and James Rolfe and auditioned to be part of the site, pitching his gimmick as basically being the nostalgia critic, but for comic books. Which isn't a bad idea. Comics have a significant following and there's tons of dumbass and weird stories to poke at for entertainment's sake. Now, funny enough, Linkara himself admitted he got into comics pretty late into his life. He wasn't a big fan of them as a kid, but grew to appreciate the medium more as an adult, and decided to focus on reviewing them as his career when his first 2 attempts at webcomics exploded in his face. That being the iconic Lightbringer series, which is a wonderful franchise full of wholesome family values, and Angel Armor, which seems to be a religious-themed superhero that Linkara was tinkering with. Cause yeah, Linkara back in the day used to be religious, which once again is kind of funny when you think about it. Still, the point is that he made 2 bad webcomics that were downright Sonichu levels of dog shit, filled with childish art, terrible ideas that are just ripoffs of other media. I mean, Lightbringer is literally just Green Lantern. It's the exact same power, but with more rape. And both comics seem to be glorified ego projects for Linkara, since the main characters in each series are self-inserts from Linkara himself. One of them is outright named Lewis with the pseudonym Linkara. It's not exactly subtle.
Because it was during that very encounter that the Lightbringer met one of the most powerful characters in his comic book. I'm talking about Lewis, or as he prefers to be called, Linkara.
Now, power fantasies aren't a complete sin when it comes to making fiction. Tons of successful and even beloved series work as power fantasies that let the audience just have a good time. James Bond is probably the biggest example of this, or at least the most blatant that you can point to. A badass super spy who kills bad guys, makes love with beautiful women across the globe, and gets to go to luxurious casinos and resorts as part of his job. Another example, Indiana Jones. Very similar to James Bond, but more of a rough and tumble America's man, fighting Nazis and weird cults to keep them from getting access to magic bullshit. Once again, a very drunk fun series that exists because people like the idea of an ultra badass going on these adventures. Hell, you could even argue a story like Berserk is a power fantasy. Guts is an ultimate badass, a warrior that fights monsters and demons, has beautiful women interested in him, and always meets every challenge with a big dick attitude. Of course, that's putting it very simplistically. There's a certain 21-hour long video you can watch with all the intricacies of Berserk. I really like that series. But the point is that power fantasies are not by themselves bad. The issue is that Linkara doesn't tackle it the same way as other examples. Those stories exist to entertain others. They're made to make other people happy, and there's a lot of excitement in the plot. Ups, downs, moments where the protagonist has the absolute shit beat out of them. They understand what makes a power fantasy fun is seeing a badass pull themselves out of a bad situation. They might be captured, betrayed, tortured, they might lose loved ones. Everything is in service to watching them rise up to the challenge and break its fucking jaw. Linkara doesn't do that. It's all about his enjoyment. And since the characters are self-inserts, you might already be smelling what the issue here. It's something that, to be honest, is still affecting Linkara to this very day. The dude is narcissistic. Insanely so, to the point that actually makes some of the claims from the Channel Awesome document downright laughable. Yeah, keep telling me how arrogant Doug Walker is when one of the pieces of evidence you have is he wouldn't fuck off to a corner of his own studio so I could film my movie. Because that's one of Linkara's complaints, it's really that bad. And we'll talk about the importance of that studio in a bit, I actually have a lot to say about that. The point is, Linkara is a tad too up his own butthole. Don't believe me? Well, then let's stop beating around the bush and get the party started, cause we're in for a long fucking night. So, Linkara's series is Atop the Fourth Wall, where he reviews various comic books, everything from mainline DC stories to the weirdest indie shit you can think of. It's actually been a consistent series with a fan base that's extremely loyal, even after all the drama and insanity. He's even had a spin-off series such as History of Power Rangers, where he talked about Power Rangers lore and how it helped spark interest for the Sentai genre to grow in the West, though that had some problems.
History of Power Rangers has no set schedule. The videos are done when they're done and will be released when they're done. In case you haven't noticed, I've been more than a little busy the last few months. If you haven't noticed, wake up already! I attended Power Morphicon, FallCon, did a very complicated ending to an episode of Atop the Fourth Wall.
Yeah, personally, not gonna lie, I was never into Power Rangers. I'm more of a History of Voltage Vengers guy.
Let me say this once again. History of Voltage Vengers has no set schedule.
Oh, god damn it, Rocco. Point is, Linkara, in spite of his eccentricities, has been able to keep a steady flow of videos going through the years, and he actually became one of the more well-known of the Channel Awesome crowd. Nowhere near to the level of Doug or Angry Joe, but enough to where he could actually keep the lights on just ranting about bad comic books to strangers on the internet. However, Linkara's fame is more in the vein of, Chris Chan than anything else in these recent years, and not just because of the bad webcomic or the dead game Muppet Gangbangs. I can never watch Muppet Treasure Island again. Thank you, Linkara. You perverted fuck. You see, while Doug kept including dumb skits in his videos as time went on, culminating with the Channel Awesome movies and demo reel being birthed into this world like demonic fetuses bursting out of their mothers, he never really took them seriously. To Boldly Flee was the exception, because that did have drama in it, but that actually made a bit of sense because I mean, he was trying to kill off the Nostalgia Critic character, he was trying to wish his coworkers a fond farewell. I can understand why he took that one seriously. It was still pretty pretentious, but at least there was an excuse. Funny enough, a lot of the Channel Awesome people had their own skits and attempts at lore. It actually is to the point that it still affects people that are inspired by them to this very day. Funny enough, a lot of BreadTube does it. H-Bomber Guy, Quentin Reviews, ContraPoints, they all have their own dumbass skits in them. Equally as obnoxious as Channel Awesome, hell, Lindsay Ellis is one of the founders of BreadTube in case you needed enough proof. Of course, the excuse is that it's all ironic, but spoiler alert, that's exactly what the angry reviewers back then said too. Shit doesn't change, people, the paint just gets a new color.
Today we're going to be talking about Garfield, A Tale of Two Kitties.
This man wasn't even exaggerating, this is what they were all like back in the day. So when people want to throw shade at Doug for the skits, they tend to pick and choose who was actually part of that trend. Because, frankly, he was just the biggest fish in that pond. One of the complaints from the document was specifically about how a guy named Erod was pissy that Doug wouldn't include his lore in the To Boldly Flee movie. He just got a cameo. Yeah, this guy apparently has a magic hammer that he uses to fight bad movies or something. I don't fucking know. He was legitimately mad Doug wouldn't let him fight the bad guys and save everyone at the end. Which really is sort of the problem with a lot of the Channel Awesome people, but let's get back on track. I'm gonna save that towards the end. The point is that Linkara himself has his own channel lore, and immediately you can see the difference between him and Doug. The Nostalgia Critic is a very exaggerated version of Doug Walker's personality. He's snarky, cartoonish, and is intentionally played up to be a self-centered, egotistical asshole. They make constant potshots about how Nostalgia Critic only cares about himself. Linkara's personality is Linkara. He's just kind of himself, making occasional quips and getting angry to an over-the-top degree, but nothing that makes it clear that he's playing a different character from just who he is normally. Granted, it's not like he has to make a role. There's tons of critics out there who don't play characters and do just fine. Sometimes, it's actually what your viewers prefer. A dude who gets to the point instead of making a 10-minute long skit to explain why the Garfield movie wasn't that good. Of course, that implies Linkara doesn't do skits, but he does. In fact, he does a lot of skits. To the point you can find multiple hours worth of compilation videos of just Linkara's lore. No reviews, just the skits. And there's hours of this stuff. Now, this would be fine if it was something like Red Letter Media, where the story arcs and skits are complete shitposts that have nothing to do with the reviews, and are really just there to explain why Mike and Jay are sitting in their chairs, talking about movies. But Channel Awesome and Linkara, especially Linkara, wanted to have it both ways. To make skits that are weaved into the reviews themselves, and build up to some grand climax or final battle. Yeah, a lot of the angry reviewer clique loved having these dumb green screen fights with a bad guy that was blatantly them in pajamas or a Halloween outfit. It was all over the place. From Nostalgia Critic to Angry Video Game Nerd to fucking Movie Bob. Now, while guys like AVGN had this, James never really took it seriously. It was an over-the-top and ridiculous segment. And it was part of a joke, that this psychotic man-child went Super Saiyan and fought a discontinued Nintendo accessory in a dramatic final battle to save video games. It was a joke that ended a single episode as a way of announcing a season finale. The Channel Awesome crowd, and especially Linkara, would build up to these fights across multiple videos, try to have a villain that was a constant presence, and would go either way to fuck with them in their videos. To the point they would have these "is this the end of the angry nostalgia kid" moments, where their character would almost die or something like that. They even had full-blown action scenes. Then their faith in gaming or comics or movies or whatever gave them the will to fight back, and they defeated the bad guy, did blah blah blah, status quo. Taking the joke segment of AVGN and stretching it to be like a full season of a TV show. And this isn't even to say James himself was immune to this problem. The mindset a lot of these online critics had was that they were becoming the new entertainment in town. They would replace movies and TV, become household names, and leverage their fame to get into the film industry. Yeah, a lot of these guys thought they could go legit, which makes the dumb skits all the more agonizing in retrospect. Because this wasn't, haha, this is so ridiculous, but playing with the green screen's a lot of fun, and I want to tinker with Adobe After Effects, see what I can do. I mean, a few of them were like that, some were very aware of what they actually were, but there were more than a few, especially in Channel Awesome, that saw this as attempts to actually pitch themselves as creators. They truly believed the cheap special effects were charming enough to carry them into actual production jobs. And this actually is something Doug Walker himself is guilty of. They weren't trying to train themselves in a new field. They believed they already mastered it and just need the attention of the right people to propel them into stardom. And now we can finally talk about the Linkara movie, because this is my thesis statement. Doug Walker made the channel Awesome Movies to hang out with his friends and have fun with his hobby. Linkara made his movie to prove how awesome he was. Linkara thinks he's James Bond, but, well, you'll see. So the Atop the Fourth Wall movie takes place sometime after the events of To Boldly Flee. Yeah, it's canon, which once again makes some claims from the document kinda hilarious. This was the movie that traumatized everyone with 18-hour-long shoots, rape scenes, and Doug not taking everybody to Applebee's, but they still acknowledge it happened in their videos. Hell, Linkara uses multiple plot points from To Boldly Flee for this movie, to the point that it's actually sort of obnoxious, but we'll get there when we get there. Regardless, Linkara is trying to adjust to life post To Boldly Flee, struggling with PTSD and trying to move on from the death of the nostalgia critic. Yeah, just kidding, he's completely fine, at least in that regard. Instead, he's dealing with his own issues that focus on his own lore, which I would hound more, but I don't want to get into detail just yet. Just know that it's both okayed because it is his movie, and also kind of makes him look like a raging dick, but we'll come to it when we come to it. Oh yeah, I mentioned that Linkara had a spaceship, which he used to save everyone come the ending of the third movie. Turns out that is not a throwaway joke, it is a major part of his character that is sort of the main focus of the movie. He got the ship after... what does the Wikipedia page say? He beat some bad guy years ago and uses it to travel around the galaxy, fighting like aliens and eldritch gods and shit like that. And no, none of this is a joke. This is all stuff that's treated as legitimate events that follow Linkara. This fat comic dweeb is supposed to be a mixture of a Star Trek crew and Doctor Who. He even has a whole cast of side characters to fully enable his shenanigans, such as himself as 90s Kid, because Linkara hates the 90s for being edgy and letting Rob Liefeld have a career. Hey, Rob's a cool guy on Twitter. He bought a dude Deadpool tickets when he couldn't afford to go see the movie. He's a cool dude. But 90s Kid is meant to be the dumb Linkara, just enjoying spectacle and violence and titties, instead of thinking about the deeper story. To comic books. Listen, I'm gonna be that guy right now. Not every comic ended up being Dark Knight Returns. A lot of them are dumbass flavor of the week stories that get retconned out of existence once enough reboots happen. I mean, far be it from 90s Kid that he just fucking enjoys having fun. I stand with you, man. We'll get this fucking nerd. We'll give him a wedgie in the parking lot later. You and me, bro. We're gonna fuck him up. There's also lounge singer Linkara, who is just him trying to be Frank Sinatra. That's pretty much the whole character. Frank Sinatra, who thinks Linkara is super cool and wants to be like a father figure to him. Yeah, him dressed as Frank Sinatra wants to be a father figure to himself. Alright. Other than that, you have robots that Linkara built that he uses as slaves, which is about the only political opinion I think we can agree on. 13th Amendment does not apply to Lugnut Americans, and I would rather die than see a fucking Alexa go to the same school as my kids. Point is, Linkara has his own crew of wacky side characters to help him pilot his spaceship, Kamikron 1, to fight threats both foreign and domestic. He even has the blessing of the US government, since a federal agent went to bat for Linkara instead of just letting them shoot him in the head.
You're here to kill me.
No, not at all. See, I said that's what they wanted to do with you. However, a low-ranking agent spoke up in your defense. Said we could trust you with it.
Who spoke up in my defense?
Which is bullshit. It's assholes like you that let the Star Wars program fail. Sometimes an internet critic or two has to die to protect national security. Do your fucking job and shoot this dumb fuck so we can get back to moving coke. I mean, so the feds can get back to moving coke. But Linkara is pulled into a mission for the US government. A space station has gone quiet and nobody knows the condition of the crew. The only one with a spaceship capable of getting to them is Linkara. So he assembles his crack team of online critics to figure out what's going on and save the astronauts, if they can. His team includes Brad Jones, the Cinema Snob, Alison Pregler, Obscurus Lupa, Kaylin Saucedo, I don't know how to say her fucking last name, Mars Girl, Nash Bozard, Nash, Joe Vargas, Angry Joe, also known as Piss Pablo, also known as Angry Alejandro, also known as Miffed Miguel, also known as Steam Sanchez. Alright, we've reached optimal racism levels, let's drop the bit. There's also the government agent that works as Linkara's handler, Nick Landis as Department of Homeland Security agent Alan Park. At least I assume he's DHS, they never make it clear what agency he works with. He's not in his 50s and wearing a Hawaiian shirt, so he can't be CIA. and the FBI wouldn't care about a spaceship. They're too busy grooming mentally ill teenagers on Discord to shoot up elementary schools. So yeah, we'll assume he's Homeland. Anyway, they all set off to the orbit of Jupiter in order to find the cause of the signal loss and make a horrifying discovery. Linkara's ultimate enemy is back, Mecha Kara, the psychotic android double of Linkara. He survived the final battle of To Boldly Flee and wants revenge on Linkara, slowly mastering the power of Malachite's gauntlet, the MacGuffin from Suburban Nights. Don't worry, it's a magic gauntlet that does magic things. There you go. And he's been assimilating the crew of the science vessel into his cyborg minions. The reveal of Mecha Kara's survival rocks Linkara to his core, already traumatized by his various battles with other reality-threatening villains, and losing faith in his path. It's to the point that the crew is almost killed by Mecha Kara due to Linkara hesitating on giving out an order, until Mars Girl snaps him back to reality. Alright, so I actually want to talk about this reveal since I have a lot to say about it. For one, Linkara really likes this villain. It's pretty much his main antagonist through most of his videos, which is fine enough. An over-the-top android that hates mankind is dumb enough for a cheap gag or so. The problem is that Linkara doesn't view it as a gag. He legitimately believes Mecha Kara is threatening. I mentioned before that the villain in Suburban Nights felt like he was inspired by Anton Chigurh, but goofier and a hypocritical dumbass, since a lot of characters in that movie poke fun at how serious he takes himself.
You'd rather watch greater failures make less of a difference than you. That makes you far worse than a soulless talking head. That makes you a human being.
I just asked if you wanted some popcorn.
Well, take that same idea, but they play it completely straight. No, I'm not kidding. This reveal is meant to be an actual oh shit moment. Griffith resurrecting at the Tower of Conviction level of oh shit. Yeah, I made 2 Berserk references in a video. You wanna fucking fight about it? Point is, Linkara really does believe Mecha Kara is some terrifying enemy, to the point that when Doug went to include the character in Suburban Nights as a twist villain, Linkara said, and I quote, he would rip everyone's throats out instead of play along.
Where do you get off?
In my bedroom, mostly. Sometimes the bathroom.
And all I can say is, frankly, where the fuck do you get off? Say what you want about the 2 dipshit villains from To Boldly Flee, at least they were a joke. They took themselves super seriously when they were doing dumb shit and looked like retards. Doug actually thought about the fact the movie is a comedy and had his characters do dumb shit as a joke. It wasn't funny, but at least it was a joke. The fact that you take such a dumb idea for a villain so seriously actually tickles something in my brain. All it does is spout out generic villain monologues, hates mankind, and only seems to be able to kill people because the plot says they have to die. Nothing about this guy is threatening. You're not Shodan, homie. You're not Robert Patrick from Terminator 2. You're not even Arnold from Terminator. This is about as Saturday morning cartoon villain as it gets. There's no higher purpose or real motivation. It's just an evil android that wants to kill mankind, because machines are super cool, which, I shall remind you, lug-nut Americans get the back of the bus. Still, all this leads into the issue I talked about earlier with Linkara's lore. Mecha Kara could have worked as a complete shitpost villain for this one movie, the Atop the Fourth Wall movie where Linkara fights an evil android of himself, but instead it's a sequel to the Channel Awesome movies and requires you to understand why this guy is such a big deal. Now, you might argue that's fine. This is a movie for his fans, so of course they'd be the ones to understand why this is all important. But I argue, if the Channel Awesome movies want to be good, they have to stand alone without the context of Channel Awesome. Just be entertaining in some way without requiring all the lore and drama, even if they weren't the best looking or the funniest, so long as it doesn't rely on knowing who these people are. They didn't exactly hit the mark in this regard, To Boldly Flee especially so, but let's be honest, Suburban Nights had some potential. Linkara's movie is the worst case scenario of what I'm talking about. You can excuse Doug dragging his friends into his misadventures because he was their boss. They make it clear in each movie, and they also establish that he's manipulating them or forcing them all to help him. You can work out why these people are coming along with Nostalgia Critic in the story, and accept the cartoon logic. Linkara's movie doesn't do that. The reason the other critics show up is because they're friends with Linkara. That's literally it. There's no real reason why it had to be these specific people. The closest you get is Angry Joe, since he was the weapons expert. Except then they break that rule because 90s Kid is the real weapon expert, outright making guns for everyone to use. So why the fuck is Angry Joe there? To run the ship's guns? How does that make sense? Wouldn't, once again, 90s Kid know more, since he spent more time on the ship? Same with Brad Jones. Linkara brought him along as a comedic relief guy, but all he really does is talk about different exploitation movies he watched and freak everybody out. And the idea of Brad being a goofy clown man is kind of odd. considering his whole character as being a snarky. Yeah, let's be honest, everyone in this fucking organization wanted to be the snarky guy, reduced to reviewing snuff films and porn. I don't know, just never struck me as a goofball type character, and he doesn't really feel like that in the movie. In fact, a lot of his jokes feel pretty awkward and misplaced. To the point that, once again, I'm going to bring up the document. One of the big complaints about Doug Walker and Channel Awesome is that they say Doug forced them all to act like how his character does for each movie, even warping and breaking certain characters to make it work for his vision. And while this did happen with guys like Film Brain, who was radically different from his video persona until To Boldly Flee, you didn't really see it happen too often with other characters. They all had moments of being complete dumbasses, but nothing I would say out of character, at least for who they were. Hell, sometimes the point of the cameo was that they weren't playing the same character, like Last Angry Geek as the Jedi guy in To Boldly Flee, or the Ring Wraiths from Suburban Nights. Yeah, they were out of character from who they are in their videos. That's the joke. Everyone else is where you dip into some harsh territory. I mentioned before that Linkara's character is basically just himself, but witty and funny, and girls think he's super cool. Yeah, it's just an idealized version of Linkara. Well, a big thing about Channel Awesome is that everyone thinks they are the main characters. They all assume they were the ones holding the ship together, and you really feel that with Linkara's movie. Linkara's movie is fanfiction brought to life. To the fucking T. His character is the center of the universe, has to solve every problem, and everyone acts like he's the key to everything. Say what you want about the ending of To Boldly Flee, about how Doug was pretty pretentious at having his own character talk to himself, but at least the guy included this line.
Okay, your story sucks. You suck.
He was willing to make fun of himself, to look like a greedy asshole who only cares about what he wants. Linkara doesn't do that. In fact, he is so selfless that he even has a self-flagellating speech where he apologizes to Mars Girl for assuming command of his own ship.
I just kind of assumed a leadership role without asking, and I'm used to having my own entourage around with me and not you guys. I should have talked to you first.
Instead of asking everyone else first. It's to the point that she herself is confused as to why it's such a big deal. It's his vessel. He's the one who would know the most. It's legit there to have a scene where Linkara apologizes to a woman about taking command instead of her. Not even kidding, that's the only reason. Since Linkara fancies himself a male feminist, somebody who cares about representation and women. Alright, cue the clips.
Hope business treats you well, Granholm. After all, you gotta pay me back by Friday. You see this nutty bitch? I found her on the street taking shits in people's yards, so I put her in a chain like a dog. I don't know who she is. She's absolutely nuttabuttas.
Yes, this dangerous group of thugs that lurks the streets at night, that stick up innocent business owners who are just looking to sell you a decent couch at a reasonable price, go by the name The Slavers, and happens upon a woman being attacked in an alleyway. He runs away. I ran as quickly as I could after I saw it. I was almost hyperventilating as I tried to push the screams for help from my mind. No matter how far I ran, they were always there, scratching at the back of my thoughts and overwhelming my reason and sanity. Damn it, why do I have to have these abilities? I never wanted them, and I sure as hell can't do anything useful with them. When I first came up with her, the idea was, in a nutshell, that she was an actress who was raped on stage in front of thousands of people who didn't realize she was being raped. Actually, Oni-chan pulls himself out of a book titled Bylaws Concerning MediaMinor.org Marriage Policies Wearing Library Glasses. According to Article 10 of the bylaws, a kitty slave is allowed to marry as many partners as she desires, as long as she continues to serve and please each person she marries. So in fact, you're not really cheating on Rini-chan. Now everybody, stop worrying about Oni-chan's pics. Or to quote Eric Cartman, I'm gonna kick you in the nuts.
I'm gonna go home and kill myself. Goodbye, friends.
Yeah, he blatantly jumped on board the Twitter brain rot trend of obnoxious rants about stuff he finds problematic, including a lot of venomous, almost vindictive rants about Frank Miller. Yeah, Linkara hates Frank Miller.
Frank Miller can't write women unless they're in some way sexualized.
Where do you get off?
You don't have to like the guy, but the idea of a comic book lover hating the man that created, let's be honest here, some of the greatest of all time stories in the medium just feels weird. And guess what a lot of his complaints are? That he's a sexist, racist, ableist, every other ist and phobe you can think of. Shocker, the guy who loves noir fiction included noir tropes, like seductive women who are attractive to look at. And the racism thing is because of Holy Terror, which Frank Miller fully admits was made because of the rage he felt after the 9/11 terror attacks.
Holy Terror?
Yeah.
I make no apologies.
No, they should.
Well, one day in 2001, 3,000 of my neighbors were ruthlessly and senselessly murdered. And so I wrote and drew a book that was partly a reaction to that, just to get the rage out. And also, my attempt at bringing back the kind of propaganda that was done in the 1940s, back when, Superman was punching out Adolf Hitler.
And frankly, the idea of crucifying the guy for that just seems pretty hypocritical to me. Tons of world events happen that get people heated, especially in comic books. The absolute fucking deluge of villains that were blatant allegories to Donald Trump during 2016 is proof enough of that. Hell, in the 40s, majority of comics were used as literal World War II propaganda, so the idea of an author suddenly being verboten because of political commentary makes me go, you're kidding, right? What makes it any different from your commentary? You're right and he's wrong? Yeah, that's what every dumbass with a political opinion says. It was 2006 when he announced it. Miller flat out admitted it was a propaganda piece against Al-Qaeda, and even then, when it came out in 2011, there were far more offensive comics that were going out of their way to offend as many people as possible. Preacher, Crossed, The Boys, Punisher Max. Yeah, Garth Ennis' whole career makes Holy Terror look like a bitch when it came to shock value. And really, it was a basic anti-hero story about fighting terrorists. Don't even get me started on what manga was getting away with by this point. And also, how fucking hypocritical is it that this guy is calling a writer a sexist or racist for sexualizing women or adhering to stereotypes when he wrote shit like this?
Oh yeah? I'm a nasty cockslut, Jenny. I can apply as I wish. Teacher gets taught a lesson. By bad babysitter. Tyrone Lincoln, resident bad boy of the school, an 18-year-old football star, and one of the few black kids in the school. Mr. Popularity. Well, she was tired of his antics, and she was here to make sure he wasn't going to just try to slide by on his football prowess. You stick it in your mouth, you stupid bitch. He grinned and pushed his massive black pole against her lips, moaning softly as he felt his teacher's hands massaging his thick member. He reached down and continued to maul her breast, loving how firm and full they felt behind the blouse. His hands began ripping off the blouse, hoping to fuck her ample cleavage. When he was done with her mouth. I love it when you white bitches know what I love. Tyrone laughed as she slid his lengthy black cock between her breasts. He gave a few light pumps between her ample jugs, getting a feel for them, as he looked down at his teacher. I'm a little tired from playing with these awesome tits, so you drive for a bit, he said with a grin. He rested his hands at his sides and licked his lips, watching as the teacher who had been trying to punish him was now on her knees and ready to tit-fuck his big black dick with her huge bust.
I think I need to go pray.
But this comes down to the point that I brought up before. Linkara has to be seen as this cool, badass knight in shining armor. He is Don Quixote brought to life, desperate to go on his own personal crusade to live out his fantasies. But in the end, he's doing nothing but slamming straight into windmills. He doesn't have political opinions or principles. He has what makes me look good in this particular point in history. Dude wrote porn where Black Dynamite fucks a white teacher yet wants to talk about the importance of proper representation. Guy rants about skimpy superhero outfits, yet had such an obsession with rape porn that he couldn't stop adding it to the webcomic he was trying to push as a legitimate book. There's learning and growing as a person, and then there's please accept me and don't ask questions about my past. Another fucked up thing is that Linkara says that he hates Garth Ennis, and yet he apparently based the Slavers in Lightbringer off the Slavers arc in Punisher Max. You do understand the Slavers were the bad guys, right? That entire arc was about talking about how fucked up human trafficking is, right? Really, it makes moments like this stand out so much as just downright insulting, especially when you later went on to try to cancel Doug for adding a rape scene to a movie, despite it not even being about rape. Might have been a little bit of subconscious projection there, Lewis. But this is not the only element that drove me crazy. Another thing that drove me nuts was the incessant attempts at making things serious. Everyone knows the Channel Awesome movies weren't funny, but at the very least, you never had to sit through agonizing attempts at drama, at least until To Boldly Flee. Atop the Fourth Wall is every bad fan film trope rolled into one movie, including the melodrama that actually makes you wonder if you're watching a movie made by aliens. This isn't drama played intentionally over the top for a cringe laugh style. This is actual attempts at making emotional monologues. Linkara's arc in the movie is that he actually wants to die, and I also want him to die. But this isn't a gag or a joke. This is taken 100% seriously. Mars Girl has a full-blown screaming rant at Linkara, where she's going full ham trying to sell an intense argument.
And then you froze!
This rant is also one of the moments that made me legitimately exhausted listening to it. Here's the thing. You guys are not actors. You are very, very much not actors. So don't try to pull off intense arguments. And if you want to know the worst part, Linkara kicks off the entire argument by telling Mars Girl that everyone else in Channel Awesome hasn't been through what Linkara went through. He fought alien gods. He fought evil cyborgs. He fought things that dwarf every threat from their movies and their videos. No, Linkara was the expert. All Doug had to do was listen to him.
You can't expect us to follow you if you don't trust us.
I didn't ask you guys to come along. You volunteered.
You're damn right we volunteered. We heard people were in trouble and we wanted to help.
You put yourselves at risk.
Oh, come on. We faced danger before.
Ha! What have you guys faced off against? A micronation? Some pissed off sorcerer who got beaten by a planeteer? An Emperor Palpatine ripoff? You guys haven't seen anything! I'm the expert here!
Oh, so this is an ego thing? You think you're better than us?
No, of course I don't! But I know how dangerous it is! You guys don't! You don't know what it is to fight something that truly wants you dead! You never had your head slammed repeatedly into a wall until it's covered in your own blood! You guys don't know what it's like to collapse on the ground thinking that you did something horrible only for it to be some monster messing with your head! You guys have never stared into the face of an angry god as it laughs at how small you are, and then you stare right back at it and make it blink!
And then you froze!
I'm gonna go home and kill myself.
He was the one who could have solved every plot point, and nothing else anyone saw could match the experiences of Linkara. Who was the one with the ego again? Anyway, the whole middle act of the movie is ridiculous. The critics and Linkara have to play a cat and mouse game to avoid a direct conflict with Mechakara, since he'll just adapt and become immune to whatever strategy they throw at him. It's literally just the fucking Borg. You made the Borg, and you think you're the next Cormac McCarthy. Well, as it turns out, the science team was sent out to investigate the remnants of the plot hole from To Boldly Flee, as it seems to still exist. Those shifted in form. Linkara and his team go down to investigate, and here is where I can talk about the studio story. So, Linkara was very angry that Doug wouldn't let him use his studio to film Atop the Fourth Wall. The movie, the cinematic experience, the thing that's gonna push me to fucking put a shotgun in my mouth. Saying that Doug was unreasonable about this is, well, unreasonable. For one, Linkara lived in Minnesota. To use the studio, he would have had to go to Chicago to film scenes for a film that wasn't a larger Channel Awesome production. That's 8 hours to get from one place to the other for a movie that didn't involve the larger Nostalgia Critic lore. Linkara is angry about this because he said over and over again he would pay for usage of the studio, but Michaud and Rob Walker explained their reasoning pretty clearly. 1. It would impact production of the Nostalgia Critic, the main user of the studio, since he actually did live in Chicago and own the place with his brother and boss. They used the place to film his videos. 2. They would need to have been supervised to prevent any damage to the studio, which Linkara would have to get insurance for. The best part about this is that Linkara didn't really have a good response to it, basically admitting, yeah, you guys would have been inconvenienced, but I said I would pay you, even though it was something he never needed to do. He even scoffed at the idea of them needing supervision. We're all adults, in his own words. Dude, even professional movie shoots have unexpected accidents. It's a completely reasonable fear to have. There's liability involved here. He even claims that the place he did rent for the movie didn't require supervision, but Linkara still need to take out insurance. Yeah, it seems the dude genuinely doesn't understand the fear a property owner has when they allow people to rent space. Hell, the guy even admits that maybe using the Channel Awesome studio probably wouldn't have happened, because certain sets would need to be taken down from Minnesota to get to Chicago, and it was very unlikely they would survive a return trip. So, I ask, What the fuck is the point of being angry about this? It sounds like Mashad and Rob saved you from dealing with a massive fucking headache. It also means you didn't have to have as many travel costs. Yet you used this as proof they were irresponsible and unprofessional. They saved you from making a huge fuck up that would have cost time and money, and they were the unprofessional ones. In fact, let's get into some territory that stops being fun. So Linkara made his movie with a Kickstarter campaign to get fan donations in order to create the project. Now, there are some damn good movies that started off as Kickstarter campaigns, the biggest two examples being Blue Ruin and The Void. The Void ran a successful Indiegogo campaign in order to fund practical creature effects, which ended up being a beloved highlight of the film. It's outright one of the most visceral Lovecraft creature featured movies to ever come out. It's fucking great. Blue Ruin was completely funded through Kickstarter, along with the savings of one of the directors. Now, it's a myth to say the movie only cost $35,000. No, actually the budget's around $400,000. The directors actually had to do a lot of scrambling to take out loans and refinance their houses in order to make it work, and the Kickstarter was just for stuff they couldn't scrape together. But the Kickstarter was only for $35,000. Linkara raised a $60,000 Kickstarter campaign for the movie. That wasn't his goal or what he dreamed of getting, it's what he fucking got. Dude was a hop, skip, and a jump away from $100,000 to make a glorified fan film for his comic book review character. And what did he do with the money? Fucking nothing. As much as Linkara touts himself as being a better writer than Doug, the guy falls into the exact same pit traps. You had $60,000 for your budget, which granted isn't a lot to play with in the grand scheme of movies. But you still did everything you could to hold on to every red cent. One of the reasons Linkara was so mad about not getting the Channel Awesome studio is that it would have been cheap, and he wouldn't have had to fly out actors to Minnesota, meaning no travel costs beyond his own. But why are you suddenly being frugal? You have no special effects, it's all the shit you've already been using in your videos. No, actually there were moments in his videos where it looked more expensive than the movie itself. And if you're really gonna sit there and tell me that each video costs thousands of dollars to make, then you must think your audience is legit that fucking stupid. And even when you do go out of your way to include something that looks like it costs money, it's shit like the Terminator skeleton that couldn't have been more than a few $100. He said he filmed in the studio for 10 days, taking 10 grand out of the 60K, meaning he had 50 to work with still. Even when you factor in actor wages, it really wouldn't have been that much of a dent to the finances. I'm sorry, but these people are not exactly the Marvel actors. They're not asking for millions of dollars here. Not every actor shows up in every scene. A lot of the first act is just Linkara in his apartment talking to himself. The guy didn't even get beds for the spaceship scenes. The actors are sleeping on the floor like in To Boldly Flee. At least that was a joke, since Doug was too cheap and lazy to care about the comfort of the people he essentially kidnapped with his makeshift starship. Linkara keeps talking about how badass and cool his warship is, but they don't even have bunks for the passengers to sleep in? Now, I understand that budgets can balloon up before you even realize it. You might think you can make a movie for $50,000 and suddenly you're in debt for over $1 million. It's something that happens, especially when you have a large scale in mind for your movie. But Linkara's movie is, and I'm gonna be honest here, just reusing assets he already had in his videos and getting cheap Halloween crap for the rest. The only part of the movie that felt like an actual film set was the bar, and if you spent all the money on a single bar scene, then you're a fucking idiot with your funding. There's no distribution to worry about, this never showed up in theaters, he uploaded it to his own YouTube channel. The entire end battle of the movie is in a goddamn warehouse. Yeah, they literally just use an industrial warehouse as an alien planet where they have the final battle with Mechakara, which, that brings up something that I also think is a great point. If you're so worried about how that one studio you rented took $10,000 away from you, in the scene where it's supposed to be an alien planet, why didn't you just go outside and film in the woods for free? I mean it. You could have saved yourself $10,000 if you were that worried about the money. Also, if you had budget issues, why not tone down the scale? Did people really need to watch you fight the same cyborg enemy you fought dozens of times throughout your videos? To use the same green screen spaceship that's apparently such a massive money sink that you had to get $60,000 for it, despite it being a running plot point through your videos? Even if he made an entire set that's supposed to be his spaceship, it seems like it's one set of walls. They just throw in a cardboard terminal or put a table in, and that's supposed to be completely different rooms even though it all looks exactly the same. So this also wouldn't exactly break the bank here. I genuinely have to ask what the breakdown of the budget was for the Atop the Fourth Wall movie, because how do you get $60,000 and look exactly the same as your regular videos? because that's something that makes me raise an eyebrow. And it's not like this stuff was impressive for when it came out. No, the Atop the Fourth Wall movie came out pretty fucking late, 2015 to be exact. Yeah, by this point there were already a lot of people making very impressive short films on YouTube for a fraction of the money Linkara got. It's All Good, a movie by YouTubers, came out literally the year after, and it's substantially more put together. And their budget was only about $15,000 above what Linkara got. You understand why all this makes me raise an eyebrow, right? Now, the Channel Awesome movies were all self-funded by the company. As far as I'm aware, they never ran campaigns to fund them or had charity drives. It was money earned through the site. Yeah, they were cheap looking, but they never pretended to be in the tens of thousands budget-wise. Fuck's sake, one of my favorite filmmakers, a guy by the name of Jim Cummings, has made a fucking career off making films that had micro budgets. And when I say micro budget, I mean the short film that went on to become the feature film Thunder Road was partly funded by him selling his fucking wedding ring. The actual film itself only had a budget of $200,000, and it does not feel like that in the slightest. The movie is fantastic and really shows what people can do with not a lot of resources. The guy was able to rent cop cars, film on location and sets, hire professional actors. This is shit a guy with just $200,000 could do.
So I can impress you overweight assholes, I gave up my fucking family!
The beta test goes a step further with an even crazier story and more locations. And its budget? $250,000. Just $50,000 more. Hell, one of the most famous stories in Hollywood is that Robert Rodriguez made his first movie, El Mariachi, with just $7,000. Money he got from odd jobs and goddamn medical experiments he took part in. All because he wanted to make a fucking movie. Do I even need to name drop Clerks? The movie that Kevin Smith funded by selling his comic book collection and casting his friends to play every role? And that was made for less money than the Atop the Fourth Wall movie. Clerks' production budget was $27,575, since Kevin Smith just filmed where he worked and cobbled the footage together. Granted, it does look cheap. Part of the reason it's in black and white is to not have to worry about the lighting and make it easier to hide brand names. But millions of people quote Clerks to this fucking day. Kevin Smith literally got into Hollywood with this movie.
You know, there's a million fine-looking women in the world, dude, but they don't all bring you lasagna at work. Most of them just cheat on you.
And in the end, this is exactly the problem with guys like Linkara, and why the ego and I'm better than you level arrogance is so insulting. Real filmmakers outright break into locations to get footage they want. They do what they have to fucking do to get the movie where they need it to go. They don't bitch about not getting access to a cheap studio to save some bucks. They suck the dick of any studio that will let them film there. They take the money they have and stretch it as far as humanly possible, because they love making movies and want to do the best job they possibly could. This was Linkara's chance to prove to the rest of the world that he was a better writer than Doug. And what did he do? Make every character a low-energy puppet that exists to serve Linkara's needs. Make a generic plot that has a literal Deus Ex Machina in it that can revive the dead, all to remove consequences from the story. That's right, the plot hole evolved into a Deus Ex Machina, and Linkara uses it to revive every character that died so they can have a happy ending. They even try to have a scene where two characters debate the possibility of God.
Do you believe in God?
Reminder that one of the complaints from the document is that Doug made everyone out of character, yet one of the characters in this is outright pondering the existence of a higher being. These people are supposed to be comedians. Mars Girl has her rant that I already talked about, and Linkara has an entire arc where he considers just dying so his burden can end. It's just the most artificial drama you could possibly get from a movie. Why are you taking a movie about internet reviewers fighting an evil cyborg so fucking seriously? There aren't even that many jokes, and when they do show up, it's just Linkara trying to be snarky. And not in a writing sense, I mean in character he makes a quip. He's trying so hard to make his characters cool, and I'm having to scratch my brain as to why. The fuck is the point of trying to make the channel awesome people some group of charismatic badasses? Also, holy shit, I legit just remembered that Lupa was part of this movie. I completely forgot about her. She does fucking nothing. Anyway, you especially feel it in their performances. All the over-the-top energy you saw in the anniversary movies is completely gone. Linkara tries really hard to make everyone seem professional, to the point that they just feel emotionless and boring. Even when they do try to emote, it all feels canned, completely lifeless, because it doesn't feel like something these people would say. Why the fuck would Mars Girl care that Linkara froze? She's just an internet critic. You would freeze too in the situation, but it's treated as such a big deal to the point that you can tell Mars Girl isn't even really a character. There's nothing about her personality that makes her any different from a local stage actress Linkara could have gotten for the role, or really any other character in the movie. because that's the point. As much as they bitch about Doug writing everyone out of character, he at least understood that they're meant to bounce off the absurdity of Doug's comedy. They usually contrast with a nostalgia critic doing something stupid, or they themselves do something stupid and ridiculous. It's all in service to making the audience laugh. Whether or not it works is another thing, but that's the intention. The characters in Atop the Fourth Wall break character in service of making Linkara look cool. It's to the point that he even extends the handjobs to the side characters he plays.
I lost someone once, someone I loved. It's really hard to believe in that kind of thing after something like that.
I'm gonna fucking shoot up a Walmart!
The Frank Sinatra guy is revealed to have a tragic past where he lost his son, which caused him to lose faith in God, but maybe there's something out there watching us, blah 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 blah. You've heard it a million times. Literally any time they bring up religion in a sci-fi show, they have this exact arc. Someone lost someone close to them, they lost faith in God, maybe there's something out there but not really God and we just don't understand it yet. You know what I'm talking about. 90s Kid is revealed to be a crouching retard hidden badass since it turns out he isn't a moron and intentionally pretends to be dumb so people underestimate him. He's actually a genius when it comes to engineering weapons. Okay, so once again, what the fuck is the point in having Joe in the movie? Everything is there to make Linkara cool. Anything even tangentially related to him has to be grand and incredible. Did you know he has a magic gun? Did you know he has a spaceship? It's like a fanfiction come to life. One where some jackass inserts himself into this franchise you like and everything about it bends to just be about how cool this guy is. It could be about Dragon Ball Z for all I know, but the guy simply couldn't sleep at night if his super special OC didn't get a lightsaber and fuck Lum from Urusei Yatsura. It's wish fulfillment. Plain and simple. Maybe Linkara genuinely thought his ideas were entertaining to his fans, but to me, it feels like he's just going with what he thought sounded cool. Now granted, that's actually a pretty common tactic to a lot of Hollywood writing. I mean, Hollywood scripts don't tend to be the best on the planet if we're gonna be honest here. But it's to the point where it's not even about what he thinks other people would think is cool, it's about what he thinks is cool. It's the same thing as Neil Breen. Neil Breen makes every movie about how he's an elite computer hacker or an alien god being, but it at least has a charm to it, because Neil Breen is a living Tim and Eric sketch. He's either completely insane or the greatest ironic filmmaker that's alive. Linkara is just some dweeb. He doesn't go far enough to be memorable. He's not delusional enough to be entertaining. He doesn't take the risks that Doug does that get him infamy, meaning that in the end, he's just mediocre, which is far more painful. He's exactly as dumb as Doug, but doesn't have the confidence to just say, don't like it, blow me. Linkara has to be cool. He has to be loved, no matter what. This is a question I legitimately have to ask. Why did the movie need to be an epic and have all these space battles? You were worried about the budget. It completely relies on turning the Channel Awesome people into a reject Star Trek crew, and all in all, it didn't work for Doug. People were annoyed at the dumb attempts at these massive epics of internet angry reviewers pretending to be badasses, the convoluted lore, the bad skits. Why not try and make something really sincere? A down-to-earth drama or a short film where you weren't in character. James Rolfe did it. He made tons of short films before he even got started with the angry video game nerd. Now granted, this was the Atop the Fourth Wall movie, so you had to have some loyalty to your character, but there's no reason why you couldn't just make a low-budget, fun comedy that didn't involve all these dumbass alien god shit plots. Hell, to her credit, Lindsay Ellis did that. She even made a whole documentary about when she got an abortion. Okay, that's not as wholesome as the James Rolfe example. The point is you don't have to shoot lightning from your hands to make a compelling film. Not even to entertain your audience with the character you created. There's no reason why you just accept the level you're at and think you're the next Mystery Science Theater, which even then had tons of screenwriters picking through every script to tighten up the jokes, to the point they had cues for the actors on when exactly to drop their riffs during the movies. And even then, not every joke in Mystery Science Theater landed. I truly think that if Linkara sat back and made a movie that's kind of like a Clerk-style story about the day in the life of Linkara where he's just a regular dude getting ready to make a video, and obviously exaggerate stuff for comedy or add a subplot here, it doesn't have to be completely realistic, but the point is, tell this small-scale story about what it's like to just be an angry internet reviewer, the bullshit you deal with, the goofy shit you run into, the exciting parts, the boring parts. I feel like it would have been 100% more relatable than this piece of shit he put out. But in the end, that was the fate for all the Channel Awesome people. They didn't think to themselves, this is a small thing I'm doing for now. At least not in the way they should have. It should have been, I'm doing this gig to tighten up my skills with editing or special effects, learning how to make a skit, then a short film, then a feature. Or finding their niche in production and kind of just mastering that and hopefully getting a job with an actual crew at some point. Whether it be lighting, cinematography, editing, there's a lot of stuff you can do, improving their skill as they go until they do something that gets critical acclaim and global name recognition. No, they thought it worked like this. This is something I'm doing right now to get my foot in the door, then when the right Hollywood producer finds my videos, they'll pitch a multi-million-dollar project my way. They never considered actually working towards their goal. They didn't have the drive to push forward beyond just being some dipshit who talks about movies on the internet. They wanted success handed to them, and their definition of success was completely delusional. In the end, they never actually viewed Channel Awesome as a replacement to anything. It wasn't the new hit genre that would kill TV or movie theaters. They all viewed it as their chance to join the system, to rub shoulders with the Hollywood producers they hated so much, and then snag a franchise deal. Of course, it was never going to work. Nowhere on God's green earth could that have ever been a possibility, but none of them wanted to accept the truth. You were never Icarus flying up to the sun. There was never a rise from which you could fall. No cocaine parties, packed movie theaters, no comic lines by Marvel. There was never gonna be Hollywood premieres for Atop the Fourth Wall Movie 2, Revenge of the Necro Muppet.
Gay Dead Muppet Gangbang.
In the end, you were just a bunch of dipshits yelling in your apartments about stuff you hated, and when given the chance to actually do the thing you keep saying you dream about, you burn up and fade away, whether it be making your own movie, making a comic book, or trying to cancel your old bosses. But maybe Linkara knows all this. Maybe he's aware and has accepted that he's stuck where he is, making his review show that he does seem to enjoy doing, and long accepting that he hit his peak years ago. But now, he's just a bitter man, alone after screwing his friends, taking part of the Change the Channel mob that blew up like a dynamite stick in a campfire, even defending the swatting of Brad Jones, at first saying he was a liar since all that happened was a wellness check, but then later saying it was completely okay because Brad took the side of abusers. Yeah, fuck you, dude. As much as Linkara fancies himself as a paladin, a real-life superhero who looks out for the downtrodden, when push comes to shove, you see who he really is deep down. A petty, egotistical, opportunistic asshole. Someone unafraid to lie about his past to manufacture a new image. Someone who thinks he's an amazing writer, yet steals ideas from other media blatantly, even stealing Spoonie's Dr. Insano character. No, that's not a joke. And the entire plot of the movie is just a rehash of To Boldly Flee, the movie you guys all hated so much that it traumatized everybody involved, yet Linkara ripped it off shamelessly. The guy even had the gall to ask for the rights to the Channel Awesome film so he could film another one after he left Channel Awesome, which apparently fell apart, to which Linkara bragged about how Doug should have just let him make the 10th anniversary special. He then later cobbled together some sort of radio drama where a bunch of people are trapped in a haunted mansion or something. It sucks and feels more like a podcast than a performance, and once again feels pretty insulting with how it takes potshots at Channel Awesome being unprofessional. Now, he's apparently trying to do some analog horror series, which frankly feels like every Marble Hornets to the Ark-style ripoff series that Wendigoon would cover. In the end, I feel like we ended Dukember with one hell of a look at Atop the Fourth Wall of the movie. The first chance contributors to Channel Awesome had to make a movie without Doug in charge. And they fucked the pig. Not only that, but it shows that a lot of the contributors truly didn't have a voice of their own. They just stuck by people who were more successful and hoped for the best. The reason they all felt like they were out of character in the anniversary movies is because Doug had to give them a character. It was really that bad. A lot of them were just themselves in front of a camera. But when the good times started to end, they fucked over everyone involved first chance they got to excuse why their own career went nowhere. They pretend to be empathetic and progressive, yet it's all a mask to hide their own fucked up histories, or even worse, excuse their own fucked up behavior. The reason why so many of these people went nowhere is because they just didn't get it. You're not making reviews to fuel your own ego. You're supposed to entertain your fans, to give them suggestions on what you like or hate and explain what makes it special to you. You don't need to be a lisping Doctor Who knockoff obsessed with rape and skimpy superhero outfits to do any of this. But for now, let's put this saga to bed. It's time to bury Channel Awesome and move on to greener pastures. I hope this series has at least convinced some of you guys to look back on the document with more skepticism, because the absolutely insane rabbit hole I found myself in with this saga can barely be described. It's to the point that I realize how little I actually knew about Channel Awesome before I started this. I'm not kidding when I say there's still so much out there that's left to be uncovered, but that's a job for better men, less exhausted men. A channel that's really dedicated to cataloging and analyzing Channel Awesome lore is Kinky Linky. I used part of their video into Boldly Flee, the review of it, and they actually reached out to me, telling me stories and sharing info about Channel Awesome that made my fucking head spin. They're nuts, and working hard on laying out exactly what the hell was up with this company. Another person that got in contact with me was, a shock and a half. Iron Liz actually contacted me to talk about her side of the story. For those unaware, Iron Liz was a Channel Awesome contributor and ex-girlfriend of Linkara. She talked about some of the stories, her own experiences with getting fired from Channel Awesome, and sort of alludes to the bully culture that started to form towards the end. That as much as these people bitch about Mashad mistreating them, a lot of the time they acted like the mean girls of the internet, trying to make or break personalities at a whim. Hell, she swears to this day the reason she got fired was because certain individuals pushed her out for voting Trump in 2016. It's just another layer to the batshit and banana sundae that is Channel Awesome. But she actually really liked the videos and even sent me a copy of the Lightbringer reboot comic she did. Even sent a letter, which was really nice. I'm gonna frame it and put it up on the wall, next to the Israeli landmine sign and poster of Berserk. Still, I think it's time to call it. I'm exhausted and this video ended up being way fucking bigger than I anticipated, by a long shot. Regardless, I hope everybody can say they learned something today. I really don't know what the lesson is. All I know is that this project got in the way of reading my shoujo villainous isekai manga, and I will never forgive Channel Awesome for that. Until next time, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. See you guys. Hey, loser. Do you want a shirt? Do you want a t-shirt? I have shirts now. Look in the description for a link to a t-shirt you can buy. If you don't buy the t-shirt, I'll kill your family. If you don't buy the t-shirt, I'll poison your dog. If you don't buy the t-shirt, you're going to be the only person in town that does not have a t-shirt. Everyone's going to look at you funny. There's going to be social consequences to not having one of these t-shirts. I'm now making express threats of violence against you if you do not buy my t-shirt. I will call the police, tell them how they're not, you're not buying my shirt. They're gonna plant crack in your house, and they're gonna arrest you and then beat you up in a jail cell. Buy my shirt.